The environment system is blended with the firms and households, and the firms are receiving inputs from the nature, and the firms and households are producing a waste from the production and consumption, and the environment system or the atmosphere is absorbing those waste produced by firms and household, and the amenities which is received by households which is also given by the environment system. So in this way, the economy, which consists of both firms and households, is closely associated with environment, because the environment which provides input and also the takes back or absorbing the waste which is produced by both firms and household. This is the good linkage between the economy. Apart from this linkage, we can also quote some other linkages, like the economy has been standing with the environmental system, or the economy is surviving with environmental system. If the environmental system is collapsed, then the economy will collapse, so that there is a linkage. If the environment is damaged, that will also damage the economic condition of the people. If the environmental condition is damaged, that means if the water resource is damaging or the water is contaminating, it will affect the health situation of the people who's living in the particular area. If the water pond, the river and the sea water is we are damaging that system, or we are damaging that water bodies, that will affect not only health, it will affect the health of the other species living in the water. And apart from that, it is deteriorating the life of the fishes who lives there, and that will affect the economic condition, or those who are depends on those fishing the water bodies, their economic and living conditions will also be affected. That is also we have to check. So these are all the impacts or the connectivity between uh, economy and the ecology, the relationship between economy and ecology. Then we'll move on to the next slide, which talks about the linkage between the economy and environment based upon uh, uh, certain model. This model is called as Ayres-Nice material balance model. If we say this model which gives a clear-cut idea about the how much the environment quality, if it is reduced the environment quality, that will required the cost to uh, bridge the gap between the quality, I mean the environment quality, and the economy. If we say the man's life is interconnected with various other livings and non-living things, yes, we are not fully dependent on ourselves. Whole economy, whole people of the nation is interconnected with the other species. The life also depends upon the social, political, ethical, and philosophical and other aspects of the economic system. That is all we all know. It is in this, the relationship between the economy and the environment is generally explained in the form of material balance model. The material balance model will first we'll understand what is the relationship, then we'll go into the material balance model according to Allen, Nees, and RV Ayres. This in short form, this material balance model will be called as Ayres-Nice material balance model. Economy, ecology and environment, triple E. It is going to interlink economy, ecology, and environment. Before we are moving into that, we'll just have some idea about what is the difference between ecology and environment. Can anyone spell out what is the difference between ecology and environment, or it is both are same? Students, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Yes, is there is any difference between ecology and environment? Slight difference?
Sir, I think there is a slight difference in the sense that ecology involves everything, as in every living and non-living organism, be it.
Very true, very true. Ah, yes.
But when we say environment, we talk about nature as in our surroundings.
Yes, yes. We have certain movable, it is very big ocean of study between this ecology and environment. In this, we are just taking only one small mustard only. This ecology, which talks about the whole system of the globe, such as living and non-living, moving and non-moving things. And that is why if the government wants to protect any of the nature's gift, such as water, they will use the status of a living element. Suppose Ganga river is there. You know what is the status of Ganga river? It's not just a river. It has been named as a living thing in the ecological system, so that we need to protect. It is like a human, it has life. You got the point, students?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Whichever is comes under those who are having life, that is all comes under the ecological system. But environment is talks about the water body is there, that is an environment. Good air quality is there, that is environment. Some trees are there, the tree also life is there. Yes, that is also we need to protect. And trees are there, that is also environment. Mountain is there, that is environment. From the mountain, there are so many Ayurvedic plants are coming. Yes, that is also nature's gift. But the ecological system that is talks about all the species which is living on this earth, that is also one part of the globe. We cannot ignore that and leave it. So if we take an example, one there was a study. The study which brings about the problems of the grasshopper. Because of the grasshopper, the some agricultural land in some countries it is affected, that it came into that particular place, one village, and one week or 10 days it will living there, and fully all the wheat grass they are eating, so that the output of the wheat or the agriculture cultivation was fully spoiled. You know what is the reason? Sir, it's nature, sir. It will come, it will go. No idea. Rosita? Can you respond to this?
Sir, I don't know.
Okay. Very good, you responded. Yes, anybody else? Anirjit? Anirjit?
Yes, sir.
Yes, how are you?
Fine, sir.
Good. Any response for this?
No idea, sir.
Okay. You understood what is the problem?
Yes, sir. The wheat, why it's spoiled.
Yeah, not only wheat, all agriculture is spoiled by the grasshopper. Yes. So, Mr. Sachin?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Sanjay? Yes, yes. Sanjay? Sanjay? Okay, Jamal?
No idea, sir. Maybe because of migration or something, that they
Okay.
all come together.
Yeah, yeah. One must. Okay. Sanjay also no idea. Okay. Normally, the grasshopper food is that wheat grass, rice grass, right? That is nature, right or wrong?
Right, sir.
Okay. What is the food for that wheat, that grasshopper is food for some other species? You know, right?
Food chain, sir, right?
Food chain. Grasshopper, grass is food for the grasshopper, and the grasshopper is the food for the some other species. That species, that is birds, we hunted a lot, and we cutted several trees so that birds could not able to reproduce more birds. And the birds which is comes from, not only we are receiving grasshopper from many countries, we also used to receive many birds from various countries. When it is comes in very small number, that time itself that will become the food for the birds. Now the birds is not available, this will become more in numbers, and now it will become problem for our output, because as human we we just de-linked that food chain. Because of the de-linkage of food chain, there will be a problem. You got the point?
Yes.
Yes. So that is the concept of the release. That is also one of the concept of the relationship between the economy and the environment. It is generally explained is called as material balance effect. And we are going to explain what is the real crux of the material balance effect. This material balance effect has invented by Aris Nees, both the environmental economists. In this, there are three things we need to understand. One is environmental quality. Second one, abatement cost. Third one, size of the GDP. Abatement cost means when environmental declining, we need to spend some amount of money to solve this environmental issue. For example, we are using fertilizers. Because of the usage of the fertilizers, the land quality is becoming deteriorated. For that, to improvising the land quality, again we have to put some natural fertilizer there, cow dung there, so that it has be revamped. So that is abandonment cost. That is one way of explaining the concept. And secondly, when we are increasing our size of GDP, so that we have to spend a lot of money for increasing our output. So while output increases, that will also deteriorate the environmental quality. Suppose one sugar factory we can take. Sugar factory is producing sugar so that we are getting good amount of GDP. we are also getting good amount of employment, and because of that, the nearby villages has been polluted due to the processing of the sugarcane, and that environmental quality has declined in that particular area. That particular area people has got employment, their income level has increased. Along with that, they have to spend some amount of money for the environmental degradation, because their river place has been spoiled. If you drink that water, you have to pay some amount of money to the doctor. And secondly, if you don't want to take that water, previously you are used to drink the water at free of cost from the nearby lake. Now you have to buy water and drink. So that is also a cost. But only thing, these things are termed as private cost, not the social cost. You got the point, students?
Yes, sir.
Yes. But if the government is opening up an industry to promote employment and income of that particular area people, they are opening up the industry. That industry produces a lot of pollution, because of that water body and the land quality has been deteriorated. But people who was not engaged in that particular company, or people who was engaged in particular company also, they have been affected by various health issues. But to solve that health issues, the government, because in that 100 people are living, all 100 people are having some uh, uh, breathing problem because of the industry, air polluted, water is contaminated, they are having some skin issues, stomach issues. What they have to do, they have to go to the hospital. If they spend their money, because they could not able to spend their money because they are poor people, and whatever they earned they have to spend in hospitals. By that, if the government is opening up a primary healthcare center there or government hospital there, that will become the social cost. And if the that can be seen in various dimensions. I request all your attention. If private cost is incurred to produce a commodity and increase the GDP, that will lead to reduce the environmental quality and increase the private cost. That is one dimension. Secondly, the private incurring some cost to produce the commodity goods and services to promote the increase the size of the GDP, that will deteriorate the environmental quality. Because of that, the government is incurring some amount of money as a social cost. That is second dimension. And the third dimension, the government itself having their own projects. For example, they have road projects, railway routes projects, construction of buildings, construction of dams. Because of that, they have to reduce, they have to sacrifice some environmental quality, cutting down of trees for providing roads, bridges, dams, and opening up a new industry, iron and iron ore industries. Here, one industry I can say in Tamil Nadu, in Kudangulam, they have started, that uh, thermal power plant. Everyone aware of thermal power plant? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes, the thermal power plant is used to produce electricity by using heat generation. By heating, they will get the electricity. For that heating generation, they are using uh, uh, an input called uranium, which has been imported from Russia. When you use that uranium, that will produces lot of waste. that has been that has been put it in sea and remaining some it is also blended with blending with the air, so that when you heat that much of generate that much of heat, automatically the globe is getting more warmer and warmer. So the global warming problem will arise. The heat generated local people also is affecting. They are getting heat itching problem. They are affecting various eye issues, and it is also they are putting out into the sea water. Sea water, the heat also will become more, and the life of the life inside the sea, which is also affecting. And because of this government project, that is also deteriorating the quality of environment, and that will also makes certain cost to the both private, that means the common people, and also to the government, because the government is also providing some welfare measures to the local people living in the in and around the radius of that particular thermal power plant. I'm sorry. And they're also establishing hospitals for the promotion of their health. So that is also cost. So the abatement cost is the cost of reducing the environmental negatives such as pollution. So there are also two things. One is the government is spending certain amount of money cost to provide the to control the health issues, or to improve the environmental people's quality. And secondly, the government has to spend some amount of money, both private and public, the private and government has to spend some amount of money to reduce the pollution. So one is after the pollution, what is the cost which is incurred by both private and society, I mean government. Private cost and social cost can be measured, and sometimes we need to go before the production, we need to control the pollution. Before the polluting, we need to control the pollution to reduce the negativeness which is happening in the environmental or the ecology. So that has to be, we need to provide. So abatement cost is the cost of reducing the environmental negativeness such as pollution. And marginal cost is an economic concept that measures the cost of an additional unit, that we know what is marginal cost. The marginal abatement cost in general measures the cost of reducing one more unit of pollution. See, we are using the economic concept like our marginal cost. Additional unit of the money which is used for the production, which produces an additional unit of pollution. That is negative side. Positive side, if you are spending some amount of additional money to reduce the one unit of production of that waste or environmental quality, that is also that will be called as the marginal abatement cost. So that measures the cost of reducing one more unit of pollution. When we are spending some amount of additional money for reducing the environmental reducing the pollution, because of that we can able to measure the reduction of one more unit of pollution. I'll give you one example for better understanding. Suppose 100 rupees we are spending for processing of our waste, and now it 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 is resulted in some 10 units, which I just take an example of units. 10 units of pollution is happening. Now our objective is to reduce that pollution. So now instead of 100 rupees for processing of the waste, we are spending 150 rupees. So 50 rupees extra we are spending. So this cost, previously we are spending 100 rupees cost for the a refining of waste. Now we are spending 150 rupees of refining waste, and when we are using that 150 amount of refining the waste, because of that the pollution which is caused due to this production is reduced from 10 units to 8 units. Here production is happening, but the cost of reducing the pollution has increased from 100 to 150 because of this increase in 50 rupees in the process of reducing the environmental process of reducing the pollution or controlling cost of pollution, that leads to reduce the 2 units of pollution in the environment, or 2 units of pollution has been controlled. That is called as marginal abatement cost. You got the point, students, or should I explain it once again? Students, you're following with me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
You got the point, or should I repeat once again? What is the meaning of abatement cost? What is the meaning of marginal abatement cost? Can I repeat one more?
Yes, sir. Please, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Abatement cost, there are 3 important elements is there in the model of material balance effect or material balance model. One is environmental quality. We all know what is meaning of environmental quality. We need to keep up the environmental across our globe in a good manner. And second one, size of the GDP. If the size of the GDP is increasing, we all know it will also affect the environmental quality. To control this degradation of environmental quality, either private or government has to incur some amount of cost. That cost is called as abatement cost. Sir, example of that abatement cost. Suppose I am using I am producing the leather industry. From the leather industry, I am also generating some waste while processing, cleaning of those inputs. We also producing some waste. Simply, if I put that waste into the land, the land will get affected. But the government is saying you should not simply put that waste into the free land. You have to process, then only we have to send it. So we have to reduce that harmness of that waste. So then I am spending 100 rupees for that reduction of that harmness in that waste, so that I process it, so that the quality, I mean that harmness has been little reduced. Then I am sending out to the either river or to the baseland, so that the land is affected very less. I mean less. Now, when I'm using, instead of 100 rupees, if I spend 150 rupees, I can go for further purification of that waste. Instead of now only because of that I'm sending out 10 units of pollution is happening. If I spend 150 rupees, two-way process, I can reduce the harmness. Then if I send, that pollution may affect only 8 units. So the additional amount of 50 rupees, if I spend on reducing the pollution of my waste, that leads to reduce 2 units of the pollution in the environment. That is called as marginal cost, abatement cost. So abatement cost is used for the reduction of pollution. Marginal abatement cost is used for the cost, additional cost used for further reduction of the pollution. Got it?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so abatement cost is not the production cost. Abatement cost is the pollution reduction cost. Because of that, no production will improve. Only we can control the pollution or reduce the pollution. I hope you are clear, students. Can I move on?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes. So we need to, in the material balance model, we need to identify two things, few things, how it is connected, the size of the GDP, environment quality, and abutment cost. Suppose in this diagram, we have the diagram. In this diagram, we have a downward sloping one blue line AA and upwards line which having the equilibrium point at E, that may be our normal demand curve and supply curve. Here, what we are measuring on the y-axis, we are measuring the environmental quality. On the x-axis, we are measuring the size of the GDP. Please listen. If the size of the GDP increases, the environmental quality will, what will happen? If the size of the GDP is increases, the environmental quality will decline. Size of the GDP increases, environmental quality will decline. So this demand for the size of the GDP or the demand for the size of the GDP is depends upon the environmental quality. If you are controlling, reducing the environmental quality, the size of the GDP will increase. That is our objective. But what is happening here, if the size of the GDP is increasing, the environmental quality will also increasing. That means that is not good for the GDP. Our objective is we need to reduce the environmental quality, we need to increase the environmental quality and increase the size of the GDP. Fine. Sir, if the GDP is enhancing, environmental quality is also enhancing. Okay, what is the reason? What we need to use? We have to use the abatement cost. Otherwise, it will not work. Otherwise, how it will work? The environmental quality, if the you first step by step I'll go. First, you take this blue line. Blue line is a line which represents the inverse relationship between environmental quality and size of the GDP. Now I'll ask you one question. For an economy, the size of the GDP is important or environmental quality is important?
Sir, can you repeat the question?
Now I am taking this blue line AA. I am just checking the relationship between size of the GDP and environmental quality. Now my question is, for the economy, for the nation, or for the globe, world, size of the GDP is important, environmental quality is important. Size of the GDP is important. One answer came. Okay. That means you just imagine this is the curve and you are checking the relationship. If the size of the GDP increase means up to this level, your environmental quality will decline. Is it fine?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So environmental quality you don't want.
We do, sir.
Environment quality is more important because even if the size of the GDP increases, but everyone is dying of various causes, different natural causes, that's problematic.
Okay, then we'll take this point. We'll take this point. We have good environmental quality, but we have very less size of the GDP is good for the economy?
No, sir.
No,
So as
we cannot compromise output, we cannot compromise GDP. Along with that, we cannot compromise environment quality. So that what we need to go, we have to go for an equilibrium between the size of the GDP and environment quality. This point is clear?
Yes, sir.
yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Now, sir, how we can arrive this equality? How we can go for this equilibrium? Then we need to provide this abatement cost to to control the pollution due to this size of the GDP. To control this GDP, I mean, to control this pollution due to this GDP, we need to use certain cost for both the producers and to the consumers so that the environmental quality can be, yes, somebody has unmuted. Okay, no problem. So to avoid this, to reach this equilibrium, then we need to have an abatement cost. So how this abatement cost is helpful in controlling or having a good amount of environmental quality and have a good GDP, that is called as sustainability. When we want to go for the sustainability, we required GDP output or the size of the GDP has to be reached and at a specific point, and we need to maintain our environmental quality. This should not go beyond this point. If it is goes beyond, if it is going up, no problem, but it is difficult to going up by increasing the size of the GDP. But we can able to maintain this equilibrium level of environmental quality by applying the abatement cost, because this abatement cost will used for the producers to refine their waste. When they are putting out their waste into the land or river, they can be able to use that money for recycling. They can use it for reducing the harmness of the waste they are generating through the size of the GDP. So in that way, the quality of environment can be balanced at this point of equilibrium so that the size of the GDP is also at par. We cannot say, sir, why we cannot go at this point so that we can able to get a good amount of GDP and good amount of quality as well. You got the point, students? At this red line, we can also achieve this point. We can take this point and have more size of the GDP and have more environmental quality. For that purpose, we need to increase further our abatement cost from this line to here. You're following with me?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So simultaneously, if you want to increase both the GDP at this point and environmental quality at this point, yes, of course, sir, we have reached more, not only equilibrium, above the equilibrium point, we can reach more size of the GDP. Because of that, our environmental quality has also increased. That means good for the environment. Yes, good for the environment. At this point, we have to reach our abatement cost also so high. And at this point, that abatement cost is at par with our production cost. Then there is no use. 100 rupees you are using for production to produce 1 unit, 100 rupees you are using for the control of pollution. Is it any profitability? Students, no question, no answer?
No profitability, sir.
no profitability, and if that abatement cost is borne by private, and if the abatement cost is borne by the government, then we need to, the government has to check. See, because of the private, they are earning so much of profit by producing goods and services, and they are affecting the environmental quality, and because of the government has to spend equivalent amount of money to them, then the government has to penalize the private people by putting more taxes. That is all our carbon taxes, the pollution taxes. Then that is also problem. That will affect again the size of the GDP. The private people could not able to bond that much of taxes, 200% taxes, 300% taxes. They could not able to bond. So that is why we need to go at an equilibrium point where that abatement cost is equal to the environmental quality and GDP, so that the equilibrium persists between size of the GDP, then environmental quality and abatement cost. If we are consistently increasing the abatement cost, that will not give any profitability, but we need to use that abatement cost to reduce the pollution, both the private and the government. If the government spends abatement cost, it's a social cost. If the private uses, it is called as the private cost. To maintain the environmental quality, main objective is to maintain the environmental quality by having a good size of the GDP. Having good size of the GDP, we have to maintain environmental quality by using the abatement cost. If the abatement cost is reduces, what will happen? See, if the abatement cost is reduces at this point, can you able to see mouse, students?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Suppose if the producer or the government chooses to go for reducing the abatement cost from this point to a lesser point at this, what will happen to our GDP? Size of the GDP?
It will increase, sir.
Yes. Why that GDP has increased? Because the society or the government or the people or the producers, they are not using the money for abatement cost, but that money has been used for enhance the production. Students, at this point you are following? Can I repeat?
Yes, sir.
Yes. From this point, the abatement cost is reduced to this point. Following?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Because of that, output has increased from here to here. Why this output has increased? Because the firms or industries, this much of abatement cost has been saved. That abatement cost has been utilized to promote the GDP. I mean, to promote the output. Clear?
Yes, sir.
And which is resulted in, where it is resulted, please follow the mouse. Where it is resulted?
A reduction in environmental quality.
Yes, from this point it has been reduced, and that is an unequilibrium point, which is affects this size of the GDP, affects the environmental quality because of the reduction of abatement cost. Fine.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So with this, I'll stop here. If you have any questions, you can ask me, please. If you don't have any questions, then I'll mark the attendance. I request all of you to enable your video so that I'll capture the attendance. Arya, sharing, Tisma, you have any network issues? Okay. Okay, thank you. No questions, Jomol,
No, sir, all clear, sir.
Rosita,
No, sir.
slipped, huh?
No, sir. Some problem with the system.
Okay. Okay, we'll continue in the next class. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Thank you,
sir.
Thank you, sir.